Hello everyone, if you've seen the new Elation characters, you may have been bombarded by a lot of random BS. We have new things like AHA, Punchline, Certified Banger, Punchline again, and now merrymaking. And with Hoyle throwing all of this at us, I'm like,
look, I'm just trying.
And that's not even mentioning all the other goofy rules or key formulas. So today I want to break down how it all works so you can understand the new units for yourself. Not to mention, I can't really make a video about Hibana or Yao Guang without people understanding Elation. So let's get right into it. To start off, let's take a look at my graphic that I made. As you can see, when you delete everything else and draw arrows for the order things, life gets way simpler. So starting on the right side, it all starts with Punchline, a new mechanic introduced with Elation. Now, there's actually two types of punchlines, so for the first one, let's just call it Punchline X. Punchline X only has two purposes. Firstly, it exists purely to stack. It just sits there and builds up. Secondly, Punchline X is only calculated in Elation Skills. Other attacks which use Elation as its damage, such as Hibana's enhanced basic attack, does not use this. But don't worry about the second part yet. For now, just know that all that matters is stacking this as high as possible. Now, Punchline X can only be gained in two ways, either by Elation units or mechanics such as the Memory of Chaos Turbulence. For us though, we'll be just looking at the former. When looking at Hibana and Yao Guang's Punchline generation, we can see that it generally generates around 1 to 5 for certain moves, and then up to 20 for others. As such, when looking at Punchline X, we can expect to see this to generally hover around 30 to 60 with our current units. From this, we can also figure out something important. You need Elation units or else there's no way to generate Punchline. That said, Elation as a path isn't fully self-contained and is similar to Super Break, where you just need one unit to enable the playstyle. In Super Break terms, while I can use a unit like Fugue who directly buffs Super Break and adds Exo Toughness, another mechanic to buff set playstyle, I can also just use Tribi because universal amps are still universal. Elation works the same way. Assuming you get big enough buffs from non-Elation units, they can be better, which we'll later look at the math behind it. But to summarize the first part, 1. We want to generate as many Punchline as possible. 2. Punchline can only be made by Elation units. And 3. Punchline X is only useful for Elation skills. With that, let's go back to the chart. The next piece is AHA, which has two primary functions. But before we get into it, let's cover AHA themselves. AHA now exists on the action bar, meaning it has its own speed and action value. While AHA's exact speed formula isn't officially known, testing gives us a pretty good approximation of 80 base speed plus your unit speed divided by X number. Now, because we don't have enough Elation units yet, we can't really complete the full formula, but going by its current pattern, I'd have to assume that it's probably 15 and 20 respectively. Now, AHA's exact speed isn't too important now, but there are some conclusions that we can come to. 1. More Elation units directly make AHA faster. And 2. One extremely fast Elation member, like Yao Guang, will be disproportionately valuable as they contribute the most to AHA's speed. To show this, I'm gonna come up with two scenarios real quick. The first is with a 180 Yao Guang and a 110 Hibana, which makes AHA have 127 speed, or takes 78.74 AV per turn. The second is with a solo Hibana, with 110 speed, which will leave AHA at 102 speed, or take 98 action value per turn. So yes, more Elation units good, and speed matters quite a bit. Now, there's also a few more additional rules that you need to know. Firstly, in-combat speed buffs to our units will affect AHA's speed. And secondly, action events such as Dance 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 does not affect AHA's action value. And third, AHA's action value will carry over to Wave 2. So if you finish Wave 1 and AHA's action value is at 20, then at Wave 2, AHA will start at 20 AV, so in front of everyone else. Also, here's two more interesting conclusions which I really don't want to go over. Now that we understand AHA's speed and its core mechanics, what actually happens when AHA takes its turn? Well, when AHA takes its turn, AHA causes an AHA instant, where during this instance, AHA doesn't directly attack, but instead, your Elation units deal the damage by launching their Elation skills. Basically, your Elation units launch a special follow-up attack anytime Aha takes their turn. Looking at our two current Elation units, we can see that Yao Guang deals 80% Elation damage plus 5 bounces, and Hibana does 50% Elation damage AoE and a lot of bounces. Now, the numbers right now don't matter, as what we're trying to figure out is, what the heck is Elation damage? This leads us to the Elation damage formula, which for now, all I want to look at is the punchline. When an Elation skill calculates its damage, it actually combines Punchline X and Punchline Y, which we haven't covered yet. That's the only notable thing here, and I'll cover the formula in depth later on. So let's move on. Now that Aha has taken her turn, and your Elation units did their Elation skill, Aha will now do two more things. Firstly, Aha will now put your Elation units into the certified banger state for 2 turns. And secondly, Aha will now convert Punchline X into Punchline Y, which is the personal stacks which Elation units scale with. This also means Punchline X is now reset to 0, which you now gotta restack. So now that we have certified banger active and Punchline Y stored on our unit, what exactly can we do with it? And thus we get to our final section. With certified banger state active, usually lasting for 2 turns, Elation units now gain access to special moves which explicitly state, when this unit possesses certified banger, they can do X. What those effects are depends entirely on the Elation unit themselves. For example, Hibana enhances her basic attack to deal Elation damage, while Yao Guang would deal additional damage based on her own punchline stacks. Just like before, the exact numbers or effects don't matter, as the guide's about the mechanic, not the characters, which I'll have a separate video later on. Instead, we can now actually look at the Elation damage formula and break down what it means for us. Now, putting the formula on the screen, we can see a lot of new words. But when putting it side by side to our current damage formula, we can see that it basically lines up 1-to-1. Starting with the base damage, instead of scaling on our scaling stat times the motion value, it's instead a flat amount of 7500 at level 80. Next is Elation damage, which functions exactly how normal damage bonus does, meaning it's found in similar places too, such as teammate buffs or stat traces. I also believe there is an Elation damage orb, with our current units getting a majority of their Elation damage via stat conversions from the traces. That said, it seems like this Elation damage stat is pretty rare compared to our normal damage bonus, as you can likely hit around 200, while our current units can easily hit up to 400 in normal play. Next up, we got merrymaking, which as of now is only found in E6 Yao Guang's kit, so it's super duper rare, to where we can just see it as Elation's form of true damage. Perhaps future units will have this, but for now, it's pretty much a non-factor. Before we get the punchline, we can see that everything else is quite literally the same, which means certain universal supports, such as Tribute or Cypher, will be fairly effective for the Elation teams for now. Crit's also the same, so with Nova Flare Sparkle now giving a lot of crit and vulnerability, she's also now a pretty solid choice, especially for a new counterpart who loves SP. And finally, we have Punchline. So let's see how much it actually boosts our damage per stack. On the screen, we'll be showing various Punchline values and the multiplier they give. Looking at the early values, or green, each stack is giving a super high increase, with the first 50 literally doubling our damage. Now going from 50 to 100, it actually increases our damage the same as prior, but the gains are relatively smaller as we already have some punchline to work with. However, once we pass 100 punchline, we now experience actual diminishing returns. Now, listening to this, you'd think that the diminishing returns would reduce mono Elation synergy, but it's actually the other way around due to its scaling. To show what I mean, I've put our two current formulas into a graphing calculator, with the blue being the normal damage bonus and the reds being Elation. As you can see, all the way until 400 damage bonus, Elation is actually much better. And as mentioned prior, because Elation could hit around 200 damage bonus in a whole mono Elation team, it's still way more effective than damage bonus, as it'll still be a 4 times amp while damage bonus is only a 3 times. But this does seem to be already inherently balanced with the fact that we're getting 2 to 4 times as much normal damage bonus. Moving on though, to have a better reference on this new equation, let's compare it to our standard damage formula. When compared into the normal formula, the Elation base damage is much lower than standard. Using an 11k HP castress with her enhanced skill, we get a motion value of 400%, and multiplied by our base HP, we deal 45,000 base damage. On the other hand, Elation's literally stuck at 7,500. This paired with Elation also having less damage bonus, not even a new independent multiplier of Punchline Y can really balance out this damage. So what exactly is going on? Well, it's actually because we're missing one last thing, the scaling from certain moves. Instead of the motion value being calculated in the base damage, you can instead imagine it being the final thing to multiply by. By the way, this changes absolutely nothing in terms of damage for when it's being multiplied. So looking at Hibana's Elation skill, we can see that all of that is being times by the motion value of 690%. So if we multiply that 690% by our earlier 7,500 damage, we get a base damage of 51,000. So the math now does check out. And yeah, now that you know the order of operations to Elation and also the math, that's pretty much all there is to know about Elation. Pretty simple if I do say so myself. That also means the guide is done. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two because I certainly did when making this video. Also, here's the initial graphic again to help you visualize the new Elation mechanics and their order. Now, I just want to say, Elation certainly is a very interesting path, which I'm pretty excited for. It's honestly just up to Hoyo if they want to make a Remembrance 2.0 or be cool about it and give us an Aglaya or Hyacinth who are open to any teammates. Hopefully it's the latter, but we'll just have to see. Now, I'm gonna make a Hibana and Yao Guang video eventually, but we'll just have to see how long that takes. I wish I could make these videos a bit faster, but the thumbnail, research, and all the other stuff takes quite a while. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see y'all in the next one. Peace!